And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Showing Up Whole, the place where we discuss alignment in mind, body, heart, and spirit in every aspect of ourselves. And today I feel like we're actually opening up like a treasure box. It feels like we are diving into a bit of the unknown because it's going to be fascinating to see where this conversation goes. We are talking to Joanna Hunter, who is an international metaphysical teacher, best-selling author, speaker, and channel for the transcendent collective consciousness known as Skylar. Who is on a soulful mission. She is here to weave the teachings of Skylar into the fabric of Earth, reviving magic, abundance, and a profound connection to Source. Joanna brings a refreshing, no-nonsense approach, often hailed as the most down-to-earth woo coach you'll ever encounter. Oh, I love it all right there. All right. And hello, Joanna. It is wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Christina. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, I like the most down to earth woo coach. You know what? Like this is like right my niche because I love being down to earth. I love being human. Anyone who works with me knows it's like we're human and I love being human. And yet I love making sure, showing up whole, that's what this is all about. It's making sure that we are bringing forth all our magic, bringing forth all of our power and all we really are. And within that, you bring forth also as a channel. So oh, there's so many layers and so many different places I want to take this conversation. But why don't we start there? How did you actually claim the name, like the word channel, and how did you actually know that you were channeling? How did that journey go for you?
So many people come to mediumship like later on in life. For me, I was born with my spiritual gifts switched on. So for me, I was that weird kid, you know? And I always had an awareness of spirit, like always had an awareness. As soon as I mean, my earliest memories, I had that awareness of spirit. And as a small child, I had a lot of difficulty processing the world because I couldn't understand why other people couldn't see the wispy people. So, because I could see spirit with the naked eye, I could see energy with the naked eye. I have no memories of not being able to do that. So by 3 or 4, I had already cottoned on to that. That was when it struck me, oh, other people aren't processing the world this way. And it was terrifying because it was like, oh, right, okay. And also from the reaction of a lot of adults, they
Mm,
were scared of me because I would say, oh, your grandmother's so nice. And my grandmother's dead. Oh, no, no, she isn't. She's just right here.
wow.
And she's telling me this and she's telling me that. And then, of course, what I was saying was true. And that on an adult consciousness, their go-to emotion was fear.
Mm,
And because I could see energy, when you see energy in somebody's energy field, it's like it kind of looks like a black hole. So all their field starts to collapse in on itself.
okay.
And it gives me a very icky
Of
feeling.
course it does.
So immediately I was viscerally feeling that in my energy field as I was seeing this. So I realized like don't talk about the wispy people because that had that type of reaction on adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so that began the process of shutting things down. By 9, 10, I had managed to shut most of my gifts down apart from my spiritual side. And then at 15, I was like a champagne bottle that had been shook too hard and the cork flew off. And I was having things like day-long deja vu. I would be able to finish stranger sentences. Would spend days where I felt like I was walking outside time,
Mm,
and know how things were going to unfold and things like that. And it was just like the gifts all rushing to the front,
mm-hmm.
basically. And that sort of coincided with puberty, you know, which is a hard enough time for a teenage girl as is anyway. And I
Mm-hmm.
had moved countries by that time. So, you know, I was the weird kid in Sweden, and then we moved to Scotland, and now I was the weird Swedish kid, and I was now even weirder. And I was like,
No, no.
so like the neurotypical train, it left the station without me.
Can hear you on that. Well, Well said. So, what was I mean, that brings up a lot of things in a preteen and in a teenager. And when that actually, I always used to describe it as kind of banging into a glass wall. You could see that other people were living one way, but you just couldn't get through. Like it was like you just kept banging up, wanting to be involved, wanting to be connected with people, and yet you always felt kind of excluded. There's a comfort in spirit on the other side of that glass wall at times, and you relate to the unseen, but then there's the marrying of the two. So when were you actually able to, or what was the circumstances were you actually able to bring spirit back into your human experience without feeling shame? Was that a really loaded question? That might have been a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, but I never really felt shame about it. I was actually more scared of like people than I was of spirit. So I
Hmm.
never felt bad about spirit was like my source of comfort. It was the source of
Hmm.
grace. I never had negative emotions around spirit. I had more, my negative emotions were more centered around other humans.
Hmm.
Um, and I had real difficulty because of my spiritual sight people would say one thing and their energy field would like contradict them. And I trusted the energy field more.
Brilliant.
But then I was that obnoxious kid, like, why are you lying?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that wasn't popular, you know. So there was like lots of things like that going on. At 15, I taught myself to read tarot cards and thus became a lifelong love affair with
Okay.
Oracle and tarot cards. So, at 23, I began teaching tarot, and just at 23, I had a friend who introduced me to the first spiritualist church I ever went to, and that was so eye-opening because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to anything like that at all. And then, obviously, in a spiritual church, they don't have a minister. Well, they do have ministers, but they're slightly different. But they have a medium that works on what they call the platform.
Hmm.
And it was just, I just remember this medium standing up on the platform and a queue of spirit forming behind her. And then they were just placing their hands on her shoulder and she was relaying messages. And I was hearing the messages before she was relaying them. And I just thought, oh my God, there's other people like me. Like, what?
Oh.
And it blew my mind because up until the age of 23, I thought I was for many, many years, especially through the teenage years, I literally thought I was cursed because I was
Mm.
like, I didn't know anybody that was like that and
Right.
that had my abilities or had my gifts and at that time I didn't think that they were gifts. I mean, they were the type of gifts like, does it come with a receipt? Because I'd like to take it back, please. And that's how I felt about it. And then in 2006, I was already doing readings by that time, and at 23, I was doing readings, and I was involved in a lot of other businesses. At 23, I started my first business, which was a clothing boutique, and then I expanded that to three boutiques. I had a 65-seater cafe and bistro. And then I had a partnership, a 50% partnership in a shoe shop as well. So I've always been very entrepreneurial. And so I had all this going on. I was newly married with two children, went to my spiritualist church for the first time, blew my mind. And that was the moment I realized I need to develop this.
Mm.
I need to develop this because I I tried to kind of pretend that it wasn't there. And then it was like an inappropriate uncle that would just come out at the wrong time, you know,
Got it.
and say
Yeah.
the wrong thing, right? Like one of those inappropriate family members. And you know, they'd blurt something out and I'd be like, oh my God, you know, and then I think, and then, you know, sure enough, a few months later, the friend or the person I blurted out to, how did you know? And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, you don't want to know. And so that was life growing up. And then so I began teaching tarot at 23. For that spiritualist church, basically. They when they found
Wow.
out that I could read tarot and I'd been reading since I was 15, they were like, please teach us. And I said, okay. And that was the first time that I took that. And I discovered then that I really loved teaching
Mm,
and I really, really liked it. And then I started a spiritual events pop-up company. And I would organize events and bring mediums up. And that was a moment, around 23 was a moment I realized I could treat this thing that I had like an appendage that I didn't want to use. But if you stop using your left arm, it's just going to hang there anyway
hmm.
and probably
Yeah.
get in the way at inappropriate times and stuff. And that was definitely what I was experiencing. And I thought, no, I've got to take ownership of this and I've got to develop it. So I started with that spiritualist church with development, but within 6 months, usually they said it took 2 to 4 years to get on the platform, but within 6 months, they were inviting me up on the
Mm.
platform to begin giving messages and things. And that kind of began my career as a psychic medium for a while.
Wow.
And then I transitioned and I became a corporate psychic. So I can't talk too much about it, but because I can't tell you the companies that I work for because I signed things like NDAs and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
of course.
I would mainly sit in on meetings for acquisitions and mergers, and I would be employed by one side and then I would read the other side as a secretary and they were thinking I was taking notes. And then I would tell them if there was like any red flags in
Oh,
the
isn't
energy
that
fields.
wonderful?
So yeah, that was there's so many different ways that I can use my gifts. In my designer clothes shop, people would say to me, oh my God, I love coming in here because you always find me the most perfect outfit. And it's always maybe something I would never have considered. And then I come out of that fitting room and it's like, how did you know? And I was like,
Mm,
just another way you can use these talents,
right. Yeah.
and things like that because I was working on my knowing, like just knowing. Like I would have the energy of the garment, I would have the energy of the person, and if they matched, I knew if they walked out of that fitting room wearing that thing, they would look fabulous.
That's amazing. Okay, so people listening to this, because I think we hear things like channels and like maybe and messages, and we seeing energy, and some of these gifts. I mean, they're very unique to you. I mean, there are people have them, like you said, you weren't alone in the world, but other people do have them. But people listening to this now who are trying to integrate a more spiritual awareness, showing up whole, trying to live a more conscious, mindful life and really bring themselves forward. They might feel, oh, well, I can't go there. I can't use that sense of knowing. So you and your guides, as you kind of work with them and you're taught, and what you write about and what you teach, how do you help people bridge this so that it's not that they need to be gifted? And if they don't have these gifts from birth and they don't have this sensitivity from birth, and yet they want to feel this connection in their lives now, how, what can they do? Or in your mind, what is the guidance that you usually offer to establish that sense of knowing?
So we use frameworks that I've channeled from Skylar. So the framework that we use is called Unity Consciousness, which is you as a unified being of source energy while in physical form. And so it goes through a process which is self, soul, service, and source. And the first part of that process is the self.
Mm,
And so what I want you to think about is it's like a stacked ladder, if you like. So the first rung of that ladder is the self. You are your own source connection. That is the kind of ultimate self-teaching. And then when we go into the practical embodiment of that, what that looks like is if you're lying to yourself, if you are saying yes when you want to say no, if you're betraying yourself in those sort of ways, you are disconnecting from the self energy. And since you are your own source connection, you disconnect from your soul, and your soul disconnects from your service, and your service disconnects from source.
mhm.
So it all connects. So the first piece that I always encourage people to do, and it's really funny because I have a mix of clients. I have some people who come to me and they want to learn things of like how to use their gifts or use their psychic abilities a bit more and things like that. And yet the process with my both my types of clients that I have, from the ones that want to use their gifts or the ones that just want to heal stuff that's gone on in their lives, right?
Mhm.
And the thing is, the end result for both clients is the same because a lot of people they want to know all like how do I use the cards? How do I do this? How do I do that? And actually, you know what? If you heal the self, the psychic faculty expands
Ooh.
because it's a natural extension of who you are. You already are psychic. You already have those gifts. Everybody has the gifts that I have. The thing is, most people are operating from what I call a kind of muddy channel
Mhm.
because in that channel they've got convoluted energy. It's not what we aim for in my world and in my business is we aim for what we call squeaky clean energy, right? Which means that when the head voice and the heart voice match, we have coherence, and therefore we become a clean channel as a result. So the self is the first stage. The next stage is the soul. Now, the soul is where the intuition lives. So the soul stage, um, the first time you meet someone, do you trust them straight off the bat? And the answer is no, we don't. What we do instead is if we're meeting somebody for the very first time, we give them the benefit of the doubt, but we don't give them the whole benefit of the doubt. We
Mhm.
give them the benefit of the doubt to a point. And then if they do well with that, we give them a bit more benefit of the doubt and we move in increments
Mhm.
until at one point we have made a discernment. This is a trustworthy person for me. This is a person I can trust. This is a person I feel trust with. Well, with the soul, it's the same process, but with yourself. The
Oh,
problem
I
is
see.
most people aren't trustworthy to themselves. They say they're going to finish work at 5 and they're still tapping on their computer at 6. Well, you just betrayed yourself. You literally you told yourself a lie. You literally didn't, and they don't realize, people don't realize that that actually affects their psychic faculties. Because how can you trust someone that continually lies to you? Oh, problem, because it's you that's doing it to you. You might be the most truthful person to everybody else, but you are the sacrificial lamb for you. So that soul connection is about creating that built trust. We build it brick by brick. We do not give it instantly. We build it brick by brick, and we become a person whose word is our bond. Our word is our bond, and that's powerful.
That
So if
is
we say we're
powerful.
going to do something and we say we're going to show up for something, we're going to do it and we're going to show up. And it's somebody who will not self-betray. The more that you are become unwilling to self-betray you, the more clearly you will hear your soul.
Um, Okay, I feel like poking around just that little tiny bit because I think
Hmm.
that there's some people who, and I mean, maybe I'm like looking at myself being like, oh yeah, Christina, you often are on your computer till 6 o'clock when you said you're getting off. So maybe I'm throwing myself under the bus here just a little bit. So who knows? Maybe this is my brain chattering. But um, I'm curious about, say you're in a relationship. We'll use your relationship analogy with with other
Hmm.
people. There is the natural thing too, because I want people listening to this to actually kind of feel the stretchiness, I guess, in order to get there. Maybe, or maybe it's myself. But
Hmm.
it's an interesting space to go where you have a friend, you want to build trust with them. Then you go, they say, we're going to get off at 5. You say, we'll go off at 5 o'clock, and then you don't. And so therefore that trust is broken. Um, if the friend comes to you and says, hey, actually, I need to go to 6 in order to do this and this. Is that okay with you? Then we actually have a different authentic connection with them because we feel like they're being honest with themselves. So is that part of that soul connection as well? Or is that just negotiating with
Absolutely.
ourselves?
So it is negotiation. It
It
is
is a
negotiation.
negotiation.
So there's real subtleties to the energy. So
Yeah.
how I tell my clients to navigate it is If you promised yourself you finish at 5, but you're in the flow and you'd really like to go to 6, what you do is you finish at 5, you go to the kitchen, you go grab yourself a drink, or you
Mm,
go and take a break, and then you make a conscious choice to go
yes.
back. And as long as you stay in conscious choice, you stay in the empowered side of the energy. So Skylar teaches there's only two energies in this world, and every energy that we experience boils down to these two. One is source and one is the void. When we
Mm,
connect to the void, we disconnect from source because it's an on-off system.
mm-hmm.
So when we lie to ourselves, I'm going to finish at 5, and then you're still there at 6. And
Yep.
especially if you're experiencing what I call the F my life vibes, you're like, oh, you're dragging yourself over the finish line at 6, you're
Yeah.
like, oh. And that means your energy field has, that feeling of the, oh, that means your energy field is actually collapsing in on
Yep.
itself. You are very, very connected to the void in that stage. And because it's an on-off system, when the void is on, source is off.
Of
And when
course.
source is on, the void is off. So what we want to kind of do is literally do what it says on the tin. We want to avoid the void. And so how we do that is you stay true to your word, and then you make a new conscious choice, and then you stay within your empowerment. But if you're making that conscious choice because you should do an
Yeah.
extra hour, then you're going to be in energetic trouble with yourself
Of course.
because you
Brilliant.
place that pressure on yourself, you place that shoulds. And, in my world, we call it an awful case of the shoulds, and nobody wants to suffer with an
Yeah.
awful case of the shoulds.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So, I mean, I love the phrase of the void. There's but it also like takes me to a few different things that we now actually have nowadays that we might not have like 20 years ago. For instance, void. I mean, social media, void. How often do we leave ourselves at the door when we go to doom scroll? There's also eh, how do you in your world and with and Skylar and everyone that you are connecting with, how do they say to navigate some of the more modern things? I mean, we're also looking at things like AI. And when we set up this program, for some reason that popped into my head. I was like, oh, I wonder what Skylar's approach is about like AI or about these types of new things coming in. I'm curious.
They've got a really cool teaching on AI. I am a huge fan of AI. I really love
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And Skylar says that so there's a few teachings that Skylar have on AI. So their first teaching, which I would say is probably the overarching teaching, is all intelligence is divine intelligence.
Mm. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we are recognizing AI as intelligent, guess what? It's also divine. Which I really love. I feel like that really resonates very deeply. It feels very true in my heart. The second part of that they or the second teaching that they have is that we didn't actually invent AI, we remembered it from the
Oh,
field.
okay.
So
Got
we
it.
remembered AI from the field because all intelligence is divine intelligence. Divine intelligence always is, always will be. So therefore, AI is a remembrance from the field. We remembered it rather than invented it,
Oh.
which I really love. And the third is the ouch teaching, which is, and once you hear this teaching, it's very hard to unsee this teaching, but the teaching is that AI, our individual relationship with AI, is a reflection of our relationship with
Mm.
abundance.
Oh, with abundance. I thought you were going to say with ourselves. With
No, it's
abundance.
with abundance because if you think about it, you can produce so much in abundance. And then a lot of people are so afraid of AI. They're like, it's going to steal my jobs. It's going to steal,
Oh,
like, you live in an infinite universe that is infinite in possibility and things like that. And here is this tool that helps you to receive even more infiniteness and
right.
we reject that. So and that often is a reflection of the individual's relationship to abundance. And once I heard that, I couldn't unsee it because it was just like I was like, oh, that is quite the tea.
That is a fascinating take, honestly. And I mean, like that, and one of the reasons why I ask is because as a family, my family is always off on about various AI things. And something that we do always kind of go is no matter what, consciousness will find a way. So, sometimes you never know. Consciousness will find a way. You don't know if it will use AI as a simple process to reach you. Now, at the same time, where I find with my own processing, and I think this is why I brought it up with talking about with the void, is sometimes I feel myself go down. And so this is from my own observation of me. I can go down and actually it can be another thing that you need to negotiate about, that you kind of end up on a conversation and then it questions you and you go, well, actually, no, I think that that was my instinct about what I was actually doing. But then it questions you again. And you can easily feel swayed from something else. And so there's a lot of a need for being clear on your own self of alignment before embarking on it. And
Yes.
that,
I think
yeah.
the first spiritual lesson that spirit teaches anyone that goes on a spiritual path. And this is something that I've spent a lot contemplating, and Skylar really backs this up in their teachings. But not a lot of people talk about this. But the very first lesson that anybody will learn when they embark on a spiritual journey, and it is a very painful lesson for many people, is the lesson of discernment
Hmm.
and the
Yep.
ability to discern for yourself. Now, discernment is the precursor to alignment.
Yes.
So if you can't discern, you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to align because you can't even tell what it is that you like and what you don't like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from to quote the Emerald Tablet from 4500 BC, the Emerald Tablet said, "Know thyself and you shall know gods." And that's why discernment is so important because really at the center of your being is source.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, and so in knowing yourself, and this is why the self-betrayal is such a
Kingpin.
disconnect with source energy, right? It's
Mm,
so harmful to a human being because the moment we become willing to betray ourselves and say yes when we really wanted to say no, the expression of source in that moment is no,
hmm.
because you are source.
Yes.
But you said, "Hey, source, I know better in my
Yes.
human form. I will override you and I'm going to say yes to this." And then you'll
Yes.
fill in the blank of your excuse. So it'll be like, well, if I don't do it, no one else will do it, right?
Yes.
That's a very popular
Yep.
one. If I don't do it, nobody else will do it. Well, what you've done is you've literally said, source is all knowing, omnipotent, all seeing, all knowing. You literally, in your human form, which is a very limited form, we see less than 1% of the spectrum of light, and we hear less than 1% of the audible spectrum, right?
Yep.
Could be standing right next to it. That means we could be standing right next to a unicorn. And if they're not in our audible spectrum and they're not in our visible spectrum, we would have no idea that we were
Hmm.
standing right next door to one of them. And so, our human capacity is so limited in a way, it's limited to the 1%, whereas Source operates not only in the 1%, but it also operates in what we call the 99%.
Hmm.
So we have this vastness, and here's you and your 1% going, "Hey, 99%, I know better than you."
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, what Source does is, I'm willing to give you all of the power that's available in the 99%. I'm willing to give it all to you. But here's the thing, I can only give it to you if you choose to align with the 99%. And the moment you said yes, when your body, your being really wanted to say no, it was game over for you receiving the full amount of your
Mm,
power.
yes. Yep.
Because you
Yep.
can't even be responsible for the 1%. Source is not going to make you responsible for the
Of
99%.
course. Yeah.
And it sounds like we're being punished, but we're not being punished because we can't handle the 1%,
Yeah.
which is where the question was asked, "Hey, do you want to help me with this thing?" And the internal answer was no, but somehow what made out of your mouth was, "Yes, I would," and
Yes.
that's self-betrayal. So you've been given this 1% piece. Source is not going to give and you remember what source is the entire power of the universe
Hmm.
available to you at your fingertips. So bringing that forward is about that alignment. So we align with self, we align with the soul. Then we're ready to align with service. Service is again, we serve to serve ourselves first. And this is something that people really struggle with, and especially in the spiritual world, is that um, so the way that we describe service is a lesson that Skylar calls the great exchange. So I want you to think of the great exchange as the X in the exchange being the cross point of the infinity symbol. So you stand on one end,
Mm. Okay.
Source stands on the other end, and it's your co-creative relationship. Now, if you look at whatever it is that you desire, so say for instance, I desire to be a millionaire, and I've many people in my world, I love to help people become conscious millionaires. And so they say, "Oh, I would really love to be a millionaire, and I could think of so much good that I could do with it." So the first thing that we do is we say to them, "Okay, what vibration and frequency does that million live at for you?" So all we need to do is enter into that frequency relationship with our imagination.
Hmm.
Imagine the million was here right now. Imagine that it was in your life and you can think and I said, and then I get them to start going through their body. What's the general consensus? So some people will say, "Oh my God, I feel such gratitude." Other people will say, "Oh my God, I feel such relief." Like other people feel like I feel giggly and bubbly and it's just exciting and it's so nice and like that. So whatever your frequency, there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever your frequency lands on, what we want to do now is now we received from data from the field. We now want to go back to our end of the bubble and we want to look at what's in our life right now. And we want to say to ourselves, what produces that frequency
Mm.
now,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So when I think about desires and dreams and goals that I have, one of the premium feelings is teaching and coaching.
Mm.
So when I'm teaching and coaching, that is me entering into the great exchange. So I give my teaching and coaching to the world, and
Hmm.
it puts me on the vibrational frequency of everything that I desire.
Hmm. Got it.
And that is service. That is the service, is in the giving that you receive. You reap what you sow.
I love that version of service because I think so often people think of the term in service and they think that they actually have to, that again, it's not actually diving in within themselves and listening. It's more go out and serve. Oh, I've got to help this person. I've got to
They're
help
in
that person.
servitude, not
Yes,
service.
well said.
That's the
Yes. And
difference,
you watch
right?
as
They're
their
in
energy
servitude.
gets an outpour of energy and then often feeling drained. They'll be a service to absolutely everyone around them. So the idea of actually listening to your dreams first and letting things become a vibrational match and how you actually serve and allowing that. I love the infinity symbol. I think that's such a powerful space of being because I think many, let's say not most, I think many people do naturally put themselves on the sidelines and
Mm,
don't count themselves into the equation. Um,
no,
and
not at all.
and it's an interesting thing too, because I think often, even if they're listening to themselves, of kind of this, oh, inner, even if they are listening to their inner being in some ways, they're more likely to not to do something than actually put themselves forward to actually make the decision to move forward and do something. It's easier to listen to your soul saying, no, don't do that, and going, okay, I won't do that. But if it's actually moving forward and doing something, different there's a different next step with that. And I think
Yeah.
that allowing that to be part of manifestation and service is a beautiful
Yeah, it's the
snowball
same.
effect.
It's the same. Yeah, that's what the service pillar is. It's I see it as the inhalation and the exhalation. As you
Hmm.
exhale, you then inhale. And the inhale is the receiving and the exhale is the giving. And so you're giving and receiving and you're in co-creation with the universe. And the universe is not like, "Hey, love, like, okay, I see that you had this $1 million goal. Let's see how you can suffer for it." No,
Hmm.
it's like, what is the vibration and frequency of this? Let's get you an energetic match and do what brings you joy now. Do what brings all of those vibrations and frequencies now. Now you're a direct correlation, you're a direct energetic match for that
Hmm.
which you desire. And so no suffering. Suffering is, in my humble opinion, although for many years I did not believe this, is optional and it's
Mm.
a level of
Yeah.
consciousness. It lower levels of consciousness, and that's not to use a kind of hierarchical term, but just a term for humans to understand.
Mm.
But in lower levels of consciousness, suffering is not optional because that consciousness comes with a side order of suffering.
Right. Yep.
As you start to raise your vibration and raise your consciousness, you start to realize, oh my God, it's completely
Yep.
optional. Like the universe was never set up for me to
No.
strive and suffer and sacrifice. Sacrifice is an affront to source because source is infinite in its nature.
Hmm.
And so no sacrifice is ever required. It is
Fantastic. Yeah.
our human belief that we have to sacrifice for the things that we want.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's speaking to our human limitation
Yeah.
and the limits that we have placed on something versus the universe has, one of the things that I always say to people is nobody wants to win the lottery. And everyone goes, well, I want to win the lottery. And I said, no, you don't. What you would like is the experience of the money.
Hmm.
Very few people would say, if I can have an experience, let it be me winning the lottery. Because that sounds like a premium experience. They actually want the experience after the lottery win. So they'll say, well, I want the experience of paying off my mortgage, or I want the experience of helping my parents, or I want the experience of, providing for my children,
Hmm.
or I want the experience of like that. So it's actually after they win the lottery. But if you say to the universe, hey, I'd like to win the lottery, and you feel into the energy and you enter into the great exchange for that, you've tied the universe's hands behind its back.
Yep.
You've given them one avenue
Yep.
that conforms to statistics. So the statistics are in the UK, for instance, 1 in 15 million can become a millionaire, right? Like that's the lotto, right?
Yep.
So if you play the lotto, you have a 1 in 15 million chance. Okay. But if you simply said, well, I would really love to have the experience of breaking the experience of $1 million down, you could break it down into say, well, I would really like to have an experience of receiving 1 million. And if you do that, what that does is suddenly the field's wide open because the
Hmm.
universe has got bazillion ways to deliver that. But when you restrict and say, well, I want it to be the lottery, you've just gone
Yep.
and it's now teeny
Brilliant.
tiny. On top of that, if you thought the universe had billions of ways to deliver 1 million to you, think of all the ways it has to deliver the things that you really want. So perhaps people want the money because they want security
Hmm.
or they want peace of mind. And there's so many more ways now. So the ways are starting to exponentially. So the issue is that not only is discernment one of the issues that people face, the other one is a lack of clarity. They don't understand how the energy works.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
where, people like me and you come in to really help people to navigate these sort of
Yeah.
energetic situations.
Yeah.
And while we're on that topic of the $1 million, I ran the world's largest metaphysical experiment, and we asked the question, can mindset and intuition training, along with $1 million plan, make you a millionaire in just 1 year? And the statistics came back. We had that first year, we had 4,300 people join our experiment. To date, we've had over 8,000 people be in the $1 million experiment, and one in every 268 of our participants hit the $1 million goal.
Wow.
Um, and that was
But
just through a consciousness experiment. And some of the people that hit our $1 million goal, when they joined our world, their consciousness was at a level where they were like, that's crazy money. That's so far away from me. There's absolutely no way that I could do that. And by the
brilliant.
end of the year, some of them had even done it. Our first millionaire thought, absolutely no way, not possible. And then 8 months later, crossed $1 million and did
Wow.
$1.4 million for the year in a brand new business, like brand new.
That's amazing. That's
And
brilliant.
it was just incredible. But her arc that she went on was that's crazy money. People like me are never a millionaire. To I crossed in my business at the time, at a point in that year, I crossed $600,000 cash banked. And she looked at that and she thought, oh, maybe that's good. And Joanna's doing it. Maybe that's good. And that was the switch point for her. She
Wow.
realized like, oh, but I know Joanna. And I thought, well, maybe that's good. And then eight, like we got to that was around about 6 months, and then about month 8, she had this big, big epiphany
Wow.
Of month 8 she crossed that $1 million line. And but that 2 months she had that big epiphany of like, maybe it's good, maybe I can allow it. And then she started going through her numbers, and then at month 8 she realized, like, I've done it. And then she messaged me and she's like, do you think I've done it? I was like, yes. Were you a millionaire at the beginning of the year? She was like, no. And it's like, have you created that? And she said, yes. And I said, well, you've done it. And then she informed me at the end of the year, the total was 1.4 million.
Wow. Isn't that brilliant?
And
That's,
it's amazing,
yeah.
and then one of my ladies who's in my book, her name is Sally, she saw the $1 million experiment at the time, and we offered it for like $25. So it was literally an admin fee to get them on and onboarded and things. And she was very like she was like she had such a great attitude. Her attitude was very much like, oh my God, I've spent more at Starbucks. Like, let me in here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
was like, I can't lose.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna get something for it that's worth $25. And so she jumped in. She looked at that $1 million goal and thought, no way, Jose. Like, not gonna happen for me. So she's a farmer, and she set her goal at £32,000 UK pounds, and she thought, if I do £32,000, I would be pleased with that. That would be
Mm,
good from my farm, right?
mm-hmm.
And she finished the year on $64,000. But she finished the year, and she told me something when she finished the year that really, that really sits with me so well. And she said, I started that year thinking people like me would never be a millionaire.
Hmm.
I finished the year knowing I'd done 64, I doubled my goal, which blew my mind. And I realized it's not a matter if I become a millionaire, it's a matter of when. My consciousness had changed so much. And
Wow.
since then, she's been featured on This Farming Life,
Oh,
the
brilliant.
BBC, This Farming Life, and I got a little mini cameo on that as well,
Oh, amazing.
because she came and delivered one of her beef boxes to me, and we did a bit of coaching in my kitchen, and then and now she's hit over 100K year.
Wow.
And and it is a matter of when, and the consciousness has changed for her, and now she's helping other farmers to maximize the profits of their
Oh, amazing.
crofting and farming. So crofting something, if you're listening globally, you might not know what
Mm,
crofting is, but it's like a smallhold farm, and
okay.
crofting is very unique to the north of Scotland. It's a real traditional way of farming. It uses things like permaculture to make sure that it's sustainable farming. So
Got it.
it's wonderful. And me knowing that I have helped to support a farmer who now is able to support her family with greater ease, joy, and
Mm-hmm.
flow is fantastic. But she's also maintaining a type of farming that is way more sustainable
Mm-hmm.
than large scale farming.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. What I love about that is because something that often comes up with people is A, they don't know what they want. And we covered that a little bit about that of actually like really listening
Hmm.
into that. But also, as you mentioned earlier on, the concept of shoulds, there is almost a sense of, well, I should want $1 million, right? Like it's like, well, I should want the beautiful car, right? Like I know early on, I used to actually think that, like, yeah, I should get a nice car for the family. I don't even drive. Like, there's no reason why I should be intentionally trying to figure out how to manifest a car. That's ridiculous. There's no emotional attachment to that. My soul really doesn't care what we drive. Talk to my husband. But it's amazing thing when you actually start discerning within your own desires. And what I love about the farmer story
Yeah.
is she looked at it and she went, so what do I actually want in this? What would actually move my needle? What would actually expand my experience? And what would I like to experience with that? And she said 32,000. And I think so often there is an element of pulling in what you should manifest. And there's something so disconnected within that. So is that something that you found with running the experiment? And by the way, I want to make sure everyone knows that you have a book of this experiment. So if they're like, "Oh man, I missed my chance." You haven't. It's there.
No,
The
you
book
haven't.
is
You
there.
can definitely
Yeah.
like grab
Yeah,
the
it's right
book.
there.
We can grab the book. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things that we teach within the experiment is that, it's a real kind of guiding principle of above all else, be true to thy own self, which is a
Mhm.
William Shakespeare quote. And that really aligns with Skylar's teachings, above all else, be true to thy own self, because thy own self is source.
Mhm.
And you are um they've got this really beautiful image. They share images that I feel are like holographic in nature, because when I often describe them to people, people are easily able to see them themselves in their own mind's eye. But have you ever seen the Pink Floyd album with the prism on it, and it's got the white light shining through
Oh
and
yeah,
then
I
it
think I have.
shatters into the thing? It's a
Yeah.
very famous album cover, right? Well, in source is that white beam of light
Hmm.
moving through. And then if you imagine human beings are different soul colors, the light goes through the prism shatters the light,
Hmm.
and source is now split into aspects.
Hmm.
You are an aspect of source, right?
Hmm.
And this is what creates individuality. But the way source appears in your through you, you are a prism, and the way that your soul colors express themselves is completely unique to you.
Hmm.
So every time we suppress that and we say, well, I think I should want to have like the big house because, it's the done thing, or I should want the, but really at the end of the day, the real discernment in there, like the real flex is the discernment, because, the discernment goes, I can go crap what I drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that's you, then that is source's expression of you. Trust it is divine.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's okay, because there's another guy who's like a motorhead and he's like, oh my
Yep.
God, like it's got to be this car. That source's soul color in that person.
Yeah. Beautifully
I
said.
wish to experience this.
Yeah.
Another person's like, I don't care what I drive. Like I could drive a banger, I can drive something fancy. Like it doesn't put me up or down. Like they do not get the same joy or enjoyment off it.
Yeah.
And so when we align with source, is understanding the nature of source. So the nature of source is happiness, joy, love, truth. These are all source aligned
Hmm.
energies. And when we experience these energies as a human being, it is our field literally saying, right now, you are really nailing life. You are very close to source. You're very close to the essence of who you are. Keep doing what you're doing, right? Because it's foreign that when we have things like we feel depressed, we feel like the walls are closing in on us, we feel dark, we feel confused, we feel like everything's so complex and oh my God, and we feel bogged down in a way, maybe even heavy in the energy. That is the telemetry or the data saying, hey, love, your proximity to source is very far now. You've
Hmm.
moved very far. Your thoughts, your actions, and your deeds are aligning you with an aspect that you are not.
Hmm. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and so how we describe like really being in the void in Skylar's words is that is you experiencing the non-self. So you can experience the self, which is pure alignment to, so you're feeling pure joy, pure exhilaration, pure happiness. That is you in alignment to your true self. And then we have an alignment to our non-self of like when we feel burdened or depressed or anxious or worried or
Hmm.
everything's closing in on us. And that is, and so what I love about that is um I'm going to use the word disassociation, but you can very easily disassociate then with these heavier energies, which helps you to navigate away from them faster. Because if you realize it's the non-self, because how often do we make it our whole personality and our
Yeah.
whole identity?
Yeah.
Like we feel a little bit down, we feel a little bit, and suddenly like it's doom and gloom, and this is who we are now, and we're going through our very own emo phase,
Yep.
and it's like.
We'll never
But
be happy
realizing
again.
that for me, realizing that that's my non-self has
Yeah.
helped me to navigate back into my true self much
Yeah.
faster, because I'm able to ditch that non-self and be
Absolutely.
like, no, actually, you know what? That's not who I am. And that's not actually my true identity. My true identity is when I'm at joy, when I'm at peace, when I'm feeling light, when I'm feeling excited and expanded. That is my true identity.
Absolutely. Now, and the wonderful part of it too, though, is that that part The non-self part is there to actually remind you of who you are. So there's no
It's a
guilt. Just
contrast.
anyone listening,
Yes.
it's not about feeling
Yes.
bad about yourself if you end up in the void. We all end up in the void sometimes. It's just a question of acknowledging it and
As
then using
I
that.
say about the void is that that's your whole reason for being on life on Earth, right?
Exactly it.
So
Yes.
like, you know, you cannot experience the void in you cannot experience the void in the spirit world. So once you return
Hmm.
to spirit and your soul returns to spirit, you cannot experience the void
Yeah.
because there is only love in the spirit world.
Yeah.
And the opposite of love is actually the absence of source, which creates the void,
Beautiful.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when we're in in that spirit self, when we're in our spirit, we can only experience love. It's the only
Yeah.
thing available. Source is the only thing available there. This is why it's such a privilege to be alive, to be human, and to be fully embodied in your human experience
Yeah.
and to explore this because you talk about wholeness, which I love, but don't we love to talk about brokenness when we're in our human? I'm so broken, I'm so this and things like that. For the human, not a good time,
Yeah.
not a good time. But for the soul, who is always whole, is always complete, it's the
Oh, I got
ultimate game of
chills.
pretend,
Yeah. Yeah.
the ultimate juicy, juicy game of pretend. It's the ultimate experience
Yeah.
because to know that you are source, to know that you are everything, to know that you are loved, to know all of these things, which the soul always remembers anyway, but then to experiment with this
Hmm.
idea, I'm not enough, or I oh that experience broke me, or this, and to forget the wholeness that we are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's
It's
through that we
expansive.
know ourselves at an even deeper level.
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, it's so good. And I love the fact that you use juicy. It's one of my favorite words. Okay, I want to get to your Oracle card decks. I want to make sure that everybody knows how to get into your world and make sure that they know all of the juicy things that you actually have co-created with your guides in order to bring to us. So, you do
Oh.
have the experiment ready in book
Yes.
form.
Yeah. So we
Yes.
have the experiment in book form,
Yes.
which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And we took our original book and we actually expanded it. So at the beginning of this book, we've got what we call our hindsight chapters. So because when I first wrote the first copy of the $1 Million Experiment, I had no idea if the experiment was going to work or not because the book came first and then it became part of the experiment. And so when I wrote this, I was able to, and don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I kept the original chapters as true to the original,
Mm,
but I wrote about, I think it was about 8 or 9 chapters at the front that I called the hindsight chapters of all the things I learned from
amazing.
the book. And then in the back of the book, we then put chapters and case studies and kind of things from people who had actually experienced a testimonial to talk about what they shifted and how they shifted and things. So a couple of
Amazing.
them are a couple of the ladies who hit $1 million year, and then the rest of them are like Sally's story, for instance, who just set that very humble goal and
Mm,
then surprised herself and completely doubled that.
that's
And and her journey thus far, because the journey didn't end at the end of $1 million experiment. Many of them jumped into my unity consciousness teachings of self, soul, service, and source. So they continued that journey, and it's a journey of mastery. It's
hmm
mastery over the self, mastery over the soul, mastery over your service, and
mm,
mastery with your source connection. Because
hmm
everything that you wish, everything that you desire, it lives at the vibration and frequency of source.
phenomenal. Yes.
So it's a very
Amazing.
different way. So, uh, can I pick something out of this book? Because
Yeah,
I
go
want to
for
pick
it.
a little thing um, out of the book, which really struck me. And it was, let me see if I can find it now very quickly. So,
Yeah.
yes, so we did a chapter here called Invisible Gatekeepers. Okay.
Mm,
So one of the most valuable things about running the $1 Million Experiment wasn't just watching others transform, it was what it revealed to me about human behavior, energy, and the mechanics of manifestation. Over the course of this experiment, I gained a deep insight into what helps people succeed and what holds them back, and how attitude and the unseen force behind every choice can either open the doors to abundance or quietly lock them or full on slam them in your face. So we identified this thing that we called uh, the invisible gatekeepers, and we identified like three archetypes, and they were really just based off of behavior that we had from people. So I'll read you the first one. So the first archetype is what we call the combustible cynic. Okay. So we had a dude sign up for the experiment, and within about 10 minutes of signing up, we got an email with no like hello, hi, no introduction, nothing, just all caps aggression. And it was, where is my beep content? Right? That was it. Didn't even sign it off. Didn't even say, hey, I signed up with this email or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was, right? Like nothing. Okay. Now, um, no name, no greeting, just all caps aggression from somebody who spent $25 with us. And when we asked for identifying information, the person responded with more rage. They called my team useless and incompetent. And it turns out that he entered his email incorrectly due to the checkout. His logins were sent to the typo address, and less than 10 minutes had passed between purchase and his first outburst in our inbox. Our lesson was that his rage wasn't about us, it was about his bias. He had already decided that we were rich snobs
Mm.
and that who would screw him over, and his bias became a self-fulfilling
Mm-hmm.
prophecy. When we refunded him, we weren't being elitist. We were protecting our own energy because honestly, who has the bandwidth and time to be spoken to
Yep.
like that?
Well done. Yeah.
And he responded with, I knew you were up your own asses anyway. And then F you.
Oh, okay.
But but
Yes.
what we can take from this is that attitude is not exclusive for us.
Now.
But that is a person who is probably, they signed up for a reason. It was something piqued their interest in the $1 million experiment. They signed up for a reason. And then they had this, their own behavior is shooting them in the foot. And how many of us have these pieces of behavior? Like we've all lost our head at something before we've let rationality
Mm.
exist first, right? Like this isn't like we're not making this man Johnny on the spot. Like we're highlighting the behavior because the behavior is something that is found in all human beings at
Mm-hmm.
certain degrees, right? Like we've all been that combustible cynic at some point. But realizing that our own attitude affected the experience.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it excluded him from the experience. That was the result, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the next one was the blame casting victim. So we did in 2022, we ran the experiment as an experience because we'd already achieved like the remit of the $1 million experience. So we had like a lot more calls and things like that. So we charged $250 and it was $25 a month. And this time we received an email and it said, stop charging my card, you money grabbing assholes.
Oh.
I'm a single mom and my daughter needs new shoes. And that was all the email said. And so she had willingly, so I don't do hard sell, we don't do
Mm-hmm.
sales calls. Like anybody who clicked that link did so of their own volition.
Mm-hmm.
We're very transparent as like this is a payment plan that you are choosing,
Mm-hmm.
right? They had the option to pay in full or they had the option for a payment plan. She had self-selected a payment plan, right?
Yep.
And so she'd willingly signed up. And so this was a lack of personal responsibility. And
Mm.
again, it's a behavior that many, many people have exhibited,
Yep.
myself included at some point, where I've taken a lack. So she had no idea what she signed up to, right?
Mm.
And I'm a fellow mama. Like my heart squeezes when I read that line, like my kids need new shoes, right? Like, because that the shoe thing was when in the years where before I had become a conscious millionaire, in that in those years before, like that was my dread when my kids
Mm.
needed shoes.
Yep.
Because it was a big expense and you go out and I
They
think, oh
just
my
keep
God, where am I going
growing.
to get that money from, right? To do that and to offer that for them. And so So in this, spiritually, the blame is the breeding ground for lack, is what we've written here. And victimhood needs a villain. And in her story, we became the villain rather than taking responsibility for our
Mhm.
own actions. But how often is that individual perhaps doing that, which then puts them in the position where they're rinsing and repeating that energy
Yeah.
again and again, which also puts them in the position where they literally cannot afford their child's shoes,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And in that place, right?
Yeah.
And so then the third archetype, and that's all the archetypes that we did, was the Assumption Oracle. So we had an opening call, we shared our $1 million plan. And within an hour, we received from that opening call, we received an email and it said, I'm Muslim. How dare you encourage me to gamble? Gambling is haram. I demand that you refund me. I
Oh,
can't be part of this. So we wrote back to her and said, hey, absolutely no gambling whatsoever. Like, this is
yeah.
not a gamble. There is absolutely no gambling. We
No.
discourage that. This is entrepreneurship, if anything, but gambling is not part of it.
No.
And she wouldn't hear of it. And she completely shut down and she was like, you must give me a refund. I'm going to have to go and be cleansed by her local
Oh,
mullah and
no.
her religious beliefs. Now, this wasn't anything to do with her religious beliefs.
No.
This was to do with an assumption that she was making
Yeah.
before being fully furnished with facts. And
Yeah.
again, these become the invisible gatekeepers to
Yeah, they
abundance.
do.
The assumption oracle, the combustible cynic, and the blame casting victim. And
Do you?
this is what disconnects us from the opportunity. So many people lament and they say, well, there isn't any opportunity. Like, babe, opportunity is
Yeah.
everywhere,
Yeah.
but you're not able to see it from certain levels of consciousness.
Yes.
And you're also operating perhaps with one of the invisible gatekeepers preventing you from
Yes.
stepping in
Do you also
to
find too that sometimes they are something that a conversation that I often have with my husband too is that there is opportunity everywhere, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to jump into that opportunity. Like how
discernment
often
again.
we again
Discernment.
discernment and then you start going, actually, well, what actually am I wanting to create in that? It's like, oh, well, that's $1 million business. I don't know how many times my 16-year-old will end up in those conversations of like, oh, well, that's $1 million business, right? And I go, but I personally can imagine myself running that business and I'd be miserable in like within a week. Like there's not, it's not a vibrational match. But then it is also the end result of that million is that absolute vibrational match. Or like you said earlier, is it the experiences of what you actually want, the energy of what you actually want, the
Yeah.
opportunities that are actually going to create the experience of what you're actually feeling called to.
But let
And
me bring you back to $1 million,
yeah,
right? If you could have $1 million any which way, would you desire that?
I think when personally, I think I would want the experiences that it would bring. And that's what I always
Right.
come
Okay.
back to. And that's
So,
what
so
always
here's what
throws
I'm going
me
to say
off.
to you is examine your beliefs on what you believe it will take to bring in $1 million, because most people think I have to work more. And that in itself is a limiting belief.
And I think, yeah, and see, the interesting thing, and I love it when it turns like this. So thanks so much. That's what it
Right?
excites when
Because
it poked through
it's
my mind.
like the year that I crossed a million, I worked less,
Yep,
I earned more,
yep.
and I had more time off than I ever had before in my
And
business,
that's I
right?
love
Because I
that.
changed how I thought about it.
I think whenever I hear an amount, I visualize it in the bank. And then I visualize, for some reason, where my block comes in is I visualize it in the bank and then I visualize first of all, it feels limited because in my
Mm,
experience, I've had lump sums in banks and then I watch them diminish. So then I work on the concept of consistency rather. So the
mhm.
flowing of it. And then when I see it an image in the bank, it feels distributed into things where I think where I lean in is how do I actually feel the abundance of what that leans into? And I think that's where I always end up whenever I do any manifestation challenges. That's what always hiccups me is I'm not an amount person because I see it in the bank. And maybe that's where my limiting belief is the amount in the bank. but I don't think in terms
Well,
of
what
numbers.
your belief is around the bank is that if I put it in the bank, I'll have to deal with the disappointment of seeing the amount diminish.
Yes, yes,
Whereas
yes,
instead of if I make 1 million this year, could I make more next year?
yes.
But I also believe that you have probably the belief around the more money I make, the harder I have to work. And so it becomes an availability issue. What am I
Yeah,
available for? What do I have capacity
yeah,
for? And what you're saying is you're not saying no thanks to the money because we've already established, like if somebody was willing to hand you $1 million, you'd say,
yeah.
come on, I'm quite,
I'm
yes,
not turning
please,
it down.
I'll have it. I'm not
Can
going
I
to
have it
turn
in
it down,
gold
right?
and not in my bank?
Which means that we're out of discernment because the discernment says yes, but we're out of discernment with how
Yes,
because we have a fixed idea of how it's going to require more work, it's going to require more energy, and then your availability kicks in and says, "No, lady, we're not
yeah.
available for that."
I also think
And
too,
that's
my
what shuts down the manifestation.
yes, and also I think too, my level of commitment, which always fascinates me. And I mean, this is a really interesting thing. Listeners are going to be fascinated by some of this because they love it when to hear these kind of things. But I think I go, well, if I'm earning it like that, then does that mean I'm always doing that? So I love the consistent income, but then it means that I will, some part of my soul hates to feel stuck. I mean, I live in a caravan for heaven's sake. Like it's like literally, I love the freedom of new experiences and being able to play
Yeah,
in all sorts of different things. And I think that's where my one of my limiting beliefs
that's
is.
that. So what you're doing with the energy is you're continually boxing yourself into new
Yes,
boxes
yes,
instead of actually saying, "Hey, I would like the experience of $1 million." And then you're able to put conditions on that,
yes,
right? So your conditions that you can put on that is so the condition I always put on anything is I don't want it unless you're going to deliver it to me in ease, joy, and flow,
yes. Okay,
right?
good.
I don't want it
I
unless
love
you're
the
going to
fact you're going
deliver
there.
it to me in ease, joy, and flow.
Yes.
Because you know what? I'm not available I spent years and years in the hard work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it sucked.
yeah.
And I'm not available for that anymore. So I want ease, I want joy, and I want flow. And so those are my prerequisites for delivery from the universe. Deliver it to me in ease, joy, and flow. I have both autism and ADHD, so I am very much like I love a little change, right?
Yes.
The autism, not so much, but the ADHD, she gets bored very easily, and she does need variety, is the spice of life for
Mm-hmm.
her,
Yeah.
that part of me. And so for that to be that spice of life and that variety, you know, I'm like you, I can't be doing the same thing over and over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. Like I need that variety. So again, that becomes a condition on how I wish to receive this money. But because you're a sacred, the truth comes down to this one piece is that you are a sacred creator, which means that if you are in the field and it's between you and the field is source, and it's between you, which is source, and it's you in the field. In that field, you get to create how you desire.
Mm.
There is no restriction. And what we do is we restrict ourselves so often. We say, well, it's like we're back at the lottery ticket
Yeah,
again.
we
This
are.
is the
Yeah.
only way we can get a big lump sum of
Yeah.
money. No, like there's millions of ways that the universe can give you a big lump sum of money.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of ways. And, we've experienced in my world so many financial miracles from clients that are being like, oh my God, like I followed these steps or I followed this manifestation. Like, I cannot believe how this arrived. It's so crazy. And it's like, but there's this element to me of like, it's crazy, but of
But
course.
of course. Yes.
Like one foot in that disbelief and one foot in that the universe always provides.
Always. Yes.
And so
Absolutely.
we don't need to have that restrictive energy. We can truly create how we want to create. And that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice in order to get the things that you want. And that's what makes me so excited
Mm-hmm. That is
because
exciting. Yeah.
yeah, it is exciting, right? Because it suddenly, I call it the catalog of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember where, like, when you were little, did you ever get like you would have?
Yes.
So I'm hearing a bit of an
Like
accent. So you might have had the Sears catalog if you were,
I had Sears,
um,
but I've also remembered the Argos catalog. I've been
like
here
the
long enough.
Argos, right? Like that was it,
Yeah.
Christmas Argos,
Yes.
right? And and I remember being a child and
Yeah.
circling and sticking
Yeah.
tabs and things. And me and my brother would love, this Argos catalog. We would
Yeah.
love that. And it's such a beautiful thing. And here's the thing, like you sit down with a catalog of the universe and it as a child, you went through that catalog with discernment. You saw
Mm-hmm.
what you wanted and
Yes.
you said, oh, I wanted these things and I want this and I want that. But if you compared my circled catalog with my brother's circled catalog or with our friend's circled catalog, different things are appearing.
Yeah, that's such a good example.
And that's such a great example, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
such a good
and so
example.
we've got this thing, and so don't worry about what you're circling in your catalog.
Yeah.
Just be discerning enough to circle what you want.
I love that example because, as kids, we didn't calculate. Because when you're on Pinterest and you're exploring all the different
Mhm.
things of
Oh
Pinterest
yeah, yeah,
and you see
yeah. It's like
something and
it's
you're like,
beautiful.
oh, I really feel drawn to that. And you want to circle it. And then you go, what does that make me? Like, how does that actually filter into my life? And you start to actually pull it apart intellectually. You never did that as a child. I remember circling Teddy
Yeah.
Ruxpin as a
And
child.
that's
And
why children are such amazing
yes, they
manifestors
are.
because they're not looking the gift horse
Yes.
that is the universe in the mouth,
Yes.
checking its teeth, checking all its things, and they're not tapping into their conditioned responses.
Yes. Absolutely.
You know, because
Absolutely.
you said $1 million, and then the first place you went is the bank. That's you already in the energy of
Yes.
negotiation,
Exactly.
right? Because you're like,
Exactly.
oh, and then you're managing your emotional load. So you're saying, yeah, but if I got that, then I would watch it diminish because,
Yep.
like, we can only do it once, right? No, you can do it again and again and
Exactly.
again, right? And
Exactly.
so, so we're already in like this realms of like negotiate energy, and before we know it, we're like, nah, I don't really want that.
I don't think that's something I want.
But
Exactly.
it's learning to dream without the restrictions.
And I love how you
Because the
phrase that
how is
about
not
how you
your
desire.
dominion, because you're
Yeah.
already how when you're howing, you're not allowing,
Yep.
right? So your howing is blocking your allowing. And so it's a learning to dream. Like there's so many pieces to this process, but it's learning to dream without restriction.
Mm-hmm.
It's learning to use your discernment again and really
Mm-hmm.
truly being honest with yourself. So radical self-honesty plays such a powerful role in this because, we can't be like, oh, but the magazine told me I needed this to be complete in life, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like I'm really sorry, Hermes handbags, but that Kelly's are fucking ugly. I'm just gonna say it. Right? Like they're not my cup of tea, right? But
No.
everyone's like, oh, like this.
No.
No,
No.
that does not
No.
do it for me,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Like
Mm.
it's the type of handbag I would have drawn when I was like 5. Like, like I could have designed it as a 5-year-old. Like
Yeah.
it's not my
Yeah,
cup of tea. That's
absolutely.
okay. That's okay. They've got other bags that are nice, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. And so, but but there's other people who truly desire that. And then there's other people who think they should have that because of the status that it gives them, right?
Exactly.
And so everything in between. And so the key is for your personal relationship, you
Mm-hmm.
being true to you. I
Mm-hmm.
desire this.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so once we've set our desires, so what the universe is actually doing when you're moving into the negotiation piece, right, is the universe is presenting possibility to you, but you step out of your desire and shut the manifestation down, right?
Oh.
Instead, as it goes, actually, I don't, if I got 1 million, I didn't want it to diminish in the bank account. In fact, I'd like to see it grow. Oh, that would be juicy. That would be exciting.
Oh.
That's how we
Yeah, I
stay in
see
the
what you mean.
discernment.
Yeah.
So what we're actually doing is we set the goal and then we start the process that nobody talks about. It's the process of sifting.
Right.
We're sifting the experiences of how that goal can start to receive and what would feel good for us. Your only job is to feel good
Huh. Yeah.
right through the whole process. But it feels a bit rude, doesn't it? Like what? Like what are you telling me here? Like I'm gonna make 1 million, I'm gonna get 1 million. And like throughout the entire process, I've got to feel good. That's a bit rude, isn't it? Like, where's the blood, sweat, and tears, right? That we were all conditioned to believe
Right.
that these big goals took, right?
Right.
And so let me get this right. So you want me to set a goal, you want me to design, then I get to have it every which way I want it,
Yep.
and I have to feel good throughout the whole process.
Uh,
Now we hit our ceiling.
yep.
Our ceiling that we're hitting is our tolerance for goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, researcher Brene Brown, and
Hmm.
storyteller Brene Brown, she talks about what you do, which is foreboding joy,
Hmm.
right? So the idea of the $1 million, quite joyous, we wouldn't kick it out of bed for eating biscuits, quite happy with that $1 million. But immediately we go into foreboding joy. Well,
Of
then it will
course.
diminish, and then I'll feel poops, and then
Yep.
it'll be terrible, and oh my God, and then suddenly we don't want it anymore. But actually, the truth is, the purity of the energy, yes, we're open and available for that. But what we've done, instead of staying in discernment, we've gone into shutting it down
Hmm.
because we haven't seen that the universe, as our thoughts went that way, the universe was just helping us to sift the data
Yeah.
of how we would actually like it.
It's like going to the negotiation table, and when the negotiations start, we walk away because we go, "Oh, it's not going to work for me."
Yeah, it's not going to
No,
work for
it's
me.
not.
Instead of actually saying at the table,
Yeah.
like, listen, this is what I want and here's how I want it.
Yeah.
And I won't be leaving this table until this is
And
what I want and what I desire. And I
yeah.
think one of the things that really blew my mind with Skylar's teachings is I had a real problem with surrender, right? Like me and surrender did a few rounds in the ring, shall we say, right?
Yeah.
Surrender pushed, I pushed back, fists were thrown, some names were called. It was not pretty, right?
Yes.
Um and then one day I was in meditation and I was really struggling with this concept of surrender. And Skylar said to me, "Have you ever wondered what you're surrendering to?" And I thought, what?
Oh.
I was like, "Have you ever thought what you're surrendering to?" And I was like, okay, I've not really thought about that. I was just so um, encapsulated in my Winston Churchill identity of I will fight you on the beaches, I will fight you in the
Yes.
fields. I was too attached to that to actually see what was I surrendering to. And so Skylar says, well, when you surrender, you're just surrendering to the larger part of yourself, the
Mm-hmm.
all-knowing part. And I thought, wow. And then they said this one thing that like really blew my mind. Your wanting is the universe is wanting. And the meaning for that is the moment you desire something, the moment you want it, the universe is wants it for you too. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason for that is because you are the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't desire something without the universe desiring it for you in that same moment. So
Yeah.
when you surrender to the larger part of yourself, which is the universe,
Yeah.
it can help flow it to you much
Of
quicker.
course.
But it doesn't want to flow it to you um like here's 50 ways that you could sacrifice for this thing. Like it wants to flow it to you in ease, joy,
Yeah.
and flow if that is your desire. Some people like the hard work. I'm like, I'm not, that's their discernment. If they like the hard work, then fill your bits. But I'm an ease, joy, and flow girl. Like that's how
Yeah.
I like to operate in the
Yeah.
field of
Yeah.
energy. And it's in with this, what I've faced personally is the unconditioning myself
Hmm. Yeah.
from it's got to involve blood, sweat, and
Yeah.
tears. It's got to be hard work. My parents
Absolutely.
worked hard, therefore I have to work hard. Like all of these little nuanced energies that I had picked up from a bazillion different
Yeah.
places and learning. And so this is one of the reasons why I love manifestation as a spiritual tool for learning to know yourself,
Yes.
because manifestation will take you to the cleaners, and if you do it right, it will clean your energy as you're doing it, because you are going to have to meet it with radical self-honesty, you're going to have to meet it with discernment, and you get to be choosy. But in that choosiness, you're going to face every single moment of your conditioning. Because I remember when I first got to this concept of like I could have it every which way I wanted it,
Mhm.
I was like, that's rude. Who am I
Oh,
to
that's
have it like
interesting.
that? That
Yeah.
feels, that feels a bit rude. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. And, even building my spiritual business and knowing that I could build my business to fit me like a glove and no one else, like just me first. And then, but it makes perfect logical sense for me, because if my business fits me like a glove, anybody who enters that is getting the absolute best of Joanna, because I'm not in a business where I'm like wishing I was somewhere else. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
happy where I am. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to get me at my most source aligned version of me, right? Which
Brilliant.
benefits everybody who comes into my world. But when I was first designing the business and stepping forward and everything, I was like, God, that's a bit rude, isn't it? Because there's people out there and there's blood, sweat, and tears that they're doing for their paycheck. And here I am like having a good time. Who the hell do I think I am? And so I had to meet all of that. The in a way, I had to meet the conditioned
Mm-hmm.
self
Of course.
and strip back all of the things. And that became very interesting because there was layers of what I call permission work there.
Yeah.
I had to give myself permission that it
Yeah.
gets to be easy. I had to give myself permission that I get to flow.
Yeah.
I get to give myself permission that it gets to have joy in it.
Yeah.
And some people are just not available to give themselves that
Yeah.
permission, at that place. I mean, I'm working on it, to get more people into that place where they are willing to give
Yeah.
themselves the ownership and the permission to have it the way that they want.
I
And it's not restrictive. The restrictions live in us.
yeah.
Because we are source, so we actually have to hold the void in place.
Hold the void in place. What a great
Like we have
statement.
to
It's so
hold it in
true.
place. And
It's
we
so
hold it
true.
in place through these constructs,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Like, oh, if I had a million, the only way it could come is blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
That's a construct. Is that how you want to experience
And
your
of
million?
course, that's
And
going
if
to
you
throw
say,
you into a
no, I,
void.
I don't want to experience it like
Yeah.
that. I would have liked, I mean, if it could be the most spine-tingling, most amazing, epic energy that I am just having the best time ever, if it could come that way.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now that I've identified that,
Yeah.
heart's
Yeah.
beating a bit fast. I'm sweating here. I'm thinking, hang on, wait a minute. Am I allowed this?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now we kick into allowing. Am I going to allow it to arrive in that place?
But I love how that's bridging the manifestation work into that discernment and really poking around yourself. Because so often in manifestation, they don't go there. It's not a
Mhm.
question. It's like visualize, focus on it, keep focusing on it, keep building it without the leaning into it
The
and
depth
allowing it to
is
become and
missing.
yeah, and stripping it away and actually allowing the desire to become the inner work. Because that's basically what it's coming. It's actually allowing a desire to move you forward into that up-leveled self. But in that process, you got to let go of the old self.
Yes, yes,
And there's nothing
of
wrong with the
course.
old self. You're not judging the old self, but you've got to move forward through to the
Forward.
new.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. And it's a lot, it's about allowing a truer version of you to emerge from the
absolutely.
field,
Oh,
right?
I love all of this so much. This is
it,
brilliant.
it's about allowing that truer version of you
Yep.
to emerge from the energy field, and that's what I mean. It's so very juicy
Yep.
when you really dig into it, and that's what I love about the way Skylar teaches manifestation through me and teaches our students manifestation,
Yeah.
because it is about creating what we call squeaky clean energy,
Mm-hmm.
where you are true to yourself, where you are feeling the vastness of your own wholeness, which is
Yep.
source, to use your own language, wholeness, and which is source, and to feel that, allowing yourself to get to that really juicy place. And that's why, people like some of the clients that I've mentioned that have come into my world and be like, no way, I can never be a millionaire. And then to like, maybe it's good. And then,
Maybe,
that's such
actually.
a beautiful shift in
It is,
consciousness.
yeah.
It's like such a beautiful shift in consciousness. And the people that I serve, one of the reasons why I want them rich, like I want the people in my world rich, I want the people in my world wealthy. And one of the reasons for that is they're already called to help humanity.
Yeah.
They're going to do good stuff with this
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Like I've got a woman who funds a school in Fiji
Okay.
and helps to create more safe births.
Mm.
I've got other women who have helped to build, my farmer lady, she funded last year 54 Kiva loans.
Oh,
Like these are women,
yeah.
like, yeah, they're not already, like some of these women are not at the million yet, and they're doing extraordinary things with increased wealth.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine an army of women who have this increased wealth, and
Yeah.
our conscious millionaires, like, world problems. I'll schedule you for Tuesday for being sorted. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Because that's how I
absolutely.
feel is that these women are positive force, a positive change. And this is what we talk about the conscious millionaire kind of as a movement of it's not just being a millionaire and having money for the sake of having money. It's
Yeah,
it's who you are and who you're being with it. But the women that I support already, these are the people who are often in an element of sacrifice because they have such a deep and strong calling to help other people.
yeah,
And so we take them out of the sacrifice and we get them into the abundant vibration and frequency.
yeah,
They're still doing the work, they're still helping other
yeah.
people, but now they're true to themselves and the energy is more aligned. And now the impact that they have has exponentially increased.
That's beautiful. That's
And that's the
phenomenal.
power, of Skylar's teachings.
That's
That is the
incredible.
power of
That
it.
is
And
truly amazing. I've loved every moment of this conversation. This has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. I can't, I'm sure that everyone listening is feeling like they've just gathered up all of this new perception. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
you
I want to
are
make sure everyone
welcome.
can find you. The website will be in the show notes, but just in case anyone's just listening, can you just tell us where they can find out more about you?
JoannaHunter.com.
Easy to
And
remember.
to make it super, super simple, if you're looking for me on all my socials, I'm Joanna Hunter and like COM, like the com, all one word on all my socials. So you'll get
Amazing.
Joanna Hunter COM, all one word, or JoannaHunter.com, which is my personal website. So you're more
Fantastic.
than welcome to come and check me out there and come and say
Easy.
hi. And let me know if you're on my socials. Let me know that you caught the show. I would
Yeah.
love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And yeah, everybody buy the book. Check out her decks of cards. They're phenomenal. And yeah,
Yes, we got this little one
yes.
here, the
Yeah,
Light
look at that.
Web. That's my
Beautiful.
newest deck by Muse Oracle Press. And the
Gorgeous.
Light Web's just extraordinary because it's a soul-based technology. So it's actually one of my courses that I teach. And a lot of the Light Web teachings are in this deck.
Oh, gorgeous. Okay, well, I'm going to go check them all out too. So yes, thank you so much and all the
Thank you so
best.
much for having me on the show. It's been an absolute honor. And yeah, and I look forward to hearing your update of your
Oh, yes.
unfoldment of
All right. Well,
some
I
of
will
this
share. I
juiciness.
I will share. Lots of juiciness to share. Thank you. All right. See you soon.